What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name is Jeff. Now, this is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and once in a while I'll throw in a list as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, why don't we jump into our list? Today we're talking about 6 things you need to know before you get into whiskey. Stick around. So we've got another list today. We're looking at 6 things you guys need to know before you get into whiskey. This is not going to be a technical list. It's not going to be like what distilleries to start with, what to look for on a bottle, tips for buying whiskey. None of that. Those are all great ideas for lists. I might touch on them someday. Instead, this is going to be more like a big picture look at some things you need to know before you jump down the rabbit hole, some basic words of wisdom before you get started. So yeah, let's not drag this on. Why don't we hop into our list? And in the meantime, if you could kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So to start off our list with number 6, the journey is never over with Scotch. There is an endless amount of Scotch, or whiskey I should say, out there in the world, and you'll be lucky if you get through even a small fraction of what's out there in your lifetime. And setting aside the fact that you have a vast amount of quality world whiskeys out there, and you have stuff like alternatives like premium brandies, rums, tequilas, if that's your thing, but just the category of Scotch itself is basically endless. Of course, you're going to have the core range expressions, but there's also limited editions, market exclusives. You could drink a different IB or independent bottle every day for the rest of your life. You could get into blends. So setting aside financial limitations, there's just too many to get through. Also, there's going to be brands that you like more than others, that you buy more of, that you stick to more often, just like me with my Ben Romix, my Kilchoman's here. Usually you try one bottle from them, you fall in love, and you start exploring the range more. And then you realize they've got some independent bottles out there, so you want to go explore some of those. You find out that there's another distillery with maybe some similar flavors going on. You want to explore there. So it's one of these things that just keeps branching out endlessly. And it's also worth remembering that whiskeys and flavors, distilleries, these all evolve. So nothing's set in stone. A whiskey that you maybe had 5 years back might not be the same whiskey today. So really, this is going to be a lifetime of exploration, a very fun one. It's never dull, but yeah, there's just so much whiskey out there, so much good whiskey out there, despite what a lot of the curmudgeons are saying. So, number 6, the journey's never over. So my 5th piece of advice is that your preferences are going to change. Now, I always call myself a sherry lover on this channel. I always have been, but there have been times out there where I preferred your bourbon matured stuff, your peated stuff, what have you. And that's not to say you won't have a certain baseline for your preferences. You will, but try and keep an open mind. There's a lot of stuff out there that I didn't used to like that I do like now. There's stuff that I did used to like that I don't like now. Things are always in motion. And building on that, it's sometimes worth coming back to a bottle that you didn't really connect with before. I touched on this a moment ago. Things change. Your preferences are going to change. The whiskey itself is going to change. So you might find yourself in a position where you can appreciate things differently now. That's what happened to me with Bruichladdich here. For the longest time, I was not a big fan of their stuff. Nowadays, if you ask me, I'll tell you they're putting out some of the best peated whiskey from Islay. So, neither me nor the whiskey are in the same place that we were 10 years ago or even 2 years ago. Oppositely, you might find yourself falling out of love with a certain bottle that you used to really love. This is normal. Nothing about whiskey is set in stone. And while some of us might think we have our preferences kind of locked in, I assure you, give it 5 years, things will be different. So, number 5, preferences change. All right, my 4th piece of advice is find some friends that you can share your passion with. Of course, drinking whiskey, collecting whiskey, that's not something that needs to be done with others, but I do think it's a much healthier way to approach the hobby. Not only do you get to enjoy the experience with others, of course, people do bond over a good dram of whiskey, but your friends are not going to be buying the same bottles as you. They're not going to have the same taste, same preferences as you. So it's a great way for you to sort of experience different whiskeys that you wouldn't be buying yourself. Great way to sort of broaden your horizon. Of course, there is also the financial incentive. Not only will you get to try whiskeys that your friends have bought, you guys might want to split bottles together, even split samples together. Whiskey is an expensive hobby, and having friends to sort of share your passion with, that can help alleviate a lot of the financial pressure. For example, these are some bottles that I split with friends. There are many, many more. Honestly, this channel would be moving a hell of a lot slower if I didn't split bottles, or I'd just be bankrupt. Whiskey is expensive, man. Your friends can help. And beyond all that, ultimately, whiskey is a social drink for social gatherings. It doesn't need to be like a big party or pretentious event. As far as I'm concerned, some of the best whiskey moments are just small gatherings with close friends. I know it's corny, but it's true. And of course, that's not to say you can't drink by yourself. You should always be drinking with your friends. That's not true. Drink by yourself, measured of course, but yeah, I don't want to get too romantic or poetic here, but whiskey's just better with friends. So, number 4, share your passion. My third piece of advice is to mix it up. Go for variety. Don't burn out on something. I've had friends do this. I've done it myself, where you like a bottle so much, it becomes a staple. You drink it all the time, and you kind of burn out on it. You get tired of it. It happened to me maybe 7 or 8 years ago with Talisker 10, a bottle that I absolutely love. I bought too much of it. I was buying it back to back, and I stopped liking it as much as I used to. And yeah, don't do that. Instead, try and mix it up a little bit. And that's not to say don't come back to the good stuff. Of course you can, you should, but just try and space it out a little bit. For example, if you're a smoky Islay guy, try a fruity Speyside or try some delicate Highland whiskeys. I mentioned earlier, there's just an endless variety of flavors and bottles out there to explore, so do that, explore. For example, I've got a Canadian here, I've got an American rye, an Irish, I've got an Armagnac back there, an IB, even got a gin. Barely even like gin. But yeah, I mentioned earlier, I always talk about how I'm a sherry guy. What I like more than sherry is variety. I would not want to drink sherried whiskey all the time for the rest of my life. That sounds boring. I mean, I could probably cope. But yeah, explore a little bit. Of course, come back to the bottles you love when you want to, but dip your toe in the water once in a while. See what else is out there. I love variety. I love looking at my shelf and knowing that I've got an option for different moods, different occasions, etc. I love having choices, so number 3, go for variety. Alright, so number 2 might seem a little bit self-serving, but use the resources you have to find out as much as you can about a bottle before you buy it. Ask your friends. You can consult yours truly or any of the other dozens and dozens of whiskey tubers out there. There's WhiskyBase, there's bloggers, there's vloggers, there's communities on Facebook and Reddit, you name it. And they're there to help you make a more informed buying decision. Now, of course, your tastes aren't going to line up with one specific person. For me, for example, when I'm looking up a bottle, I'll check WhiskyBase, WhiskyTube, maybe a few blogs, and it's going to be the amalgamation of all that information that gives me a good general overview of what the whiskey's about. So unless it's something really new that no one's reviewed yet or something super obscure, you should be able to get at least a basic idea about the bottle that you're curious about. So if you put in that extra little bit of time to do your research, you're gonna end up with a better collection. And in doing so, you're gonna waste less money on bottles that you don't like. Now, of course, that's not foolproof. It's still going to happen. I've bought quite a few bottles over the years that were well researched, but just didn't end up working out. For example, our Tobermory here, this is a 12-year-old cast strength port pipe finish. I like Tobermory, and the reviews for this were pretty good. This scored something like 87 on WhiskyBase. A lot of people had some really nice things to say about it, and I just don't like it. And that's normal. That's going to happen. But that is the exception and not the rule. Generally speaking, the more research you do, the more you're likely to be happy with your buy. So it's important. Number 2, do your research. Alright, number 1 is something you need to be prepared for if you get into this lifestyle, or maybe we shouldn't call it a lifestyle, let's call it a hobby. But yeah, if you get into this hobby, listen, this is a touchy subject. It's something that a lot of us aren't comfortable talking about, but money. We need to be careful with our money. This is an expensive hobby, and I know that seems very obvious. We've all paid for bottles before. We know the prices, but I mean, it adds up over time. I shudder to think how much money I've spent on whiskey in my lifetime. Certainly a lot, and of course, I don't regret it. I love whiskey. It's my luxury of choice. It's how I treat myself. It makes me happy. But I'm not a rich guy. It's something I've always needed to budget for. And depending on your circumstances, your situation, you can allot however much you want, let's say per month, for your whiskey budget. And it's important to stick to it. Now, of course, there's always the impulse to sort of, go a little bit over, treat ourselves. I've done it. I'm sure you've all done it too. And that's fine once in a while, but it's something you don't want to keep doing. And yeah, I want to avoid being like too preachy here. I've certainly broken my own rules, but I'm just going to say it's important that we make the effort to try and stay on budget. Also, it's important that we recognize that we will be spending a lot of money on whiskey over the long term. So yeah, I'm quite lucky. I don't have children. I live in a place where the cost of living is quite low. And yeah, even here in Taiwan, whiskey prices are among the lowest in the world. And despite all that, it's still really easy for me to overspend. We've got our Cavalans here, expensive stuff, especially in the West. Looks really fancy, but I had to budget for this. And I'm not trying to be a downer here. I think good whiskey is worth good money. I don't regret getting into the hobby, absolutely not, but it's undeniably expensive. So number one, be prepared to spend some money. Alright, that's it for our list today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I've just poured myself a dram of Kavalan Solus Port. Gonna represent Taiwan a little bit. Beautiful stuff. I know a lot of you are waiting for Kavalan reviews. Trust me, I will get around to them eventually. Anyway, what did I miss? What are some words of wisdom that maybe I missed out on that we could share with beginners out there? You know, I know a lot of this list is like common sense, but hopefully some of you out there found the list helpful and not too patronizing. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to help out the channel, please consider becoming a patron. As always, give me the usual like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you next time.